In this video, I want to talk about what separates those people who succeed from those people who get stuck. Why do we get stuck? What's causing us to get stuck? I've thought about this, and one of the big things I see is that we need to move away from fear-based avoidance. So there's things that we're fearing or things that we want to avoid. So fear-based avoidance, we need to move away from that into courageous engagement. So if you look at your life and think, what things that are fear-based or things that I'm avoiding, what are those? And then what can I move into in an area where I'd feel excited, where I'd feel courageous about myself, where I'd feel good about myself for doing this? Because too many of us are living in these fear-based avoidances. We're avoiding things that, if we would do them, would be game-changing. If you look at highly successful people, what they do is they lean into challenges. They lean into uncertainty. And as a result, they end up having growth, much more growth than the average person. So what you need to do is replace your self-doubt with curiosity. Instead of doubting yourself, say, why am I doubting myself? What's going on here? What else could this mean? What else could this be? Why do I want to procrastinate? Why do I want to do this? Get curious about it. And when you're curious, you're going to replace that self-doubt, because you can't have two emotions at the same time. You can't be fearful and feeling loving at the same time. You can't be nervous and also calm. So if you want to change this self-doubt that you have, replace it with curiosity. The next one is replace procrastination with action. There is never going to be a perfect time. I hear so many people like, well, I just need to wait until I'm ready, or I need this, or I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, or maybe next year it'll be better. Well, you know what? 10 years is going to happen. A month is going to happen. A week is going to happen. And whether you do something, whether you improve yourself or not, time is going by. So you might as well use that time to help yourself. Use that time to take action and to get things going rather than procrastinate. Too many of us, we are always waiting for that perfect time, that perfect moment. And I remember when I was thinking about having kids, I asked one of my friends that I really respected, Ed, I said, what about you and kids and all that? And he told me, he said, there's never going to be a perfect time. There's always going to be something like a financial issue. There's going to be a relationship issue. There's going to be a job issue. There's something's going to be going on, and there's never ever going to be a perfect time. So if you want kids, he's like, have kids. And that was some of the best advice I ever got. But again, if you procrastinate and if you're waiting for that, it's never going to happen. The next one is replace external validation. So needing other people to bless you, to say that you're doing good, and replace that with internal conviction. You have an internal compass inside of you, and too many of us have shut that off. So tap into your internal compass, tap into your guidance, figure out, what is it that I'm here to do? And do I need everyone else to understand me, to give me their blessings, to give me their likes and approval? No. Does it feel good when they do? Absolutely. But is that something you need? So switch from needing external praise, external validation, and switch it to internal conviction. The next one is eliminate excuses. If you are full of excuses, you're not going to have the results you want. It's that simple. So you want to replace those excuses with ownership and responsibility. A great book I read one time was Extreme Ownership. And it was basically talking about how when you take ownership of something, that's totally different than renting or being passive about it. You are there, you're involved, you're engaged. And that's what you want to do here. You want to look at, what kind of excuses am I making? What are those excuses doing? Are they giving me a free pass? Are they giving me something so that I don't feel so bad about not doing it? Excuses never help you. They're just rational reasons we come up with for not doing what we want to do or knowing what we could do. Responsibility, when you look at that word, responsible, it means you're able to respond. You're responsible, response-able. And you choose how you're going to respond. Do you respond with excuses, or do you respond by stepping up, getting into it, making yourself a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday, and continuing on that journey? The other thing is, a lot of us have invisible brakes on. So we feel stuck. We feel the effects of it. We feel like, man, I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. I don't feel like this is working out. It's happening. So we feel the effects, but we don't look at the cause. What's the cause of us having this feeling stuck feeling or not making the progress we want? If you ask most people, do they have the health they thought they'd have at this point in their life? Do they have the finances they thought they'd have? Do they think they'd have whatever you want to fill in the blank? Most people will be like, no, I actually thought it'd be a little bit better than this, if they're being true and honest. Now, it's not bad to have big goals and big dreams and things like that. What you don't want to do is lower your expectations so that then you meet them. You'd rather challenge yourself and let's see what can happen. Next, I want to talk about baggage that we have. All of us have a bunch of baggage, myself included. We have old fears. We have conditioning. We have patterns we're used to. And all that stuff keeps you limited. It keeps you small. If you can notice the patterns that you're doing, when this happens, I feel this and I stop, or I get stuck, or I don't get started until I feel this emotion. If you can notice those patterns, we have patterns in life. They're called seasons. We have patterns in all kinds of things. Like if you look at the stock market, it goes up and down, up and down. There's patterns to all this stuff. And you have patterns in your life too. So look at what patterns am I doing, and are those patterns serving me? Are they causing me to go down dead ends and get stuck? What are my patterns showing me? The next point is really foundational to the rest of this video, and that is, it's more about removing what's holding you back than it is about adding something new. And I want to say that again. It's more about removing something that's holding you back than it is about adding something new. So earlier in this video, I just mentioned like swapping things out, like procrastination for action. So literally you're removing procrastination, and what's left? Action. A famous quote I want to read is, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved it until I set him free." That was Michelangelo. He has all this marble, and in his mind, he needs to chip away and chisel away everything that isn't the statue. And then the statue is free, and then you see it. That can be true for us too. If you look at, what do I need to let go of? Imagine if I had mud and gunk all over the top of me, and I needed to let go of that. I needed to let go of these fears. I need to let go of these doubts. I need to let go of hesitation, procrastination, all these things. Then you could get to the real you. And that's what we want. We want the real us to shine through, just like Michelangelo carved that statue. Now, success is not external. It's not something that you acquire. You can look at people who are movie stars, look at people who had all kinds of success, and they feel hollow. They didn't take care of the true part, which is on the inside. They needed to look at, what if I removed everything that was unnecessary? One time I was in a class and they said, if you look at what makes a good acting or what makes a good play, and they said, do we need like the lights? Do we need the sound? Do we need the costumes? Do we need this? Do we need that? And I really didn't understand the point of it at first. But then he got to the point, and that was, it's down to two actors, or an actor and an actress, and some kind of interaction they're having, the dialogue. Now, the scene in the background, if you put that in there, it should add to the experience. If you add music, It should add to it. It shouldn't be distracting. If you add costumes, that should make it a better experience. So his whole point was that too often we add music, we add all this stuff because we think we need to, but when you get to the core, what is the core of acting? There's a message, it's being portrayed to the audience, and everything else was extra, and it's either helping you or not. So back to the people who have had external success, did they do that but not figure out what truly mattered to them on the inside? Did they have a hollow victory? Have you ever had that where something worked, it worked out fine, but you just kind of felt hollow because, you know, I got lucky, or I just didn't really participate as much as I could? Here, you want to be able to clear all the things that aren't you. So take all the things that aren't you and be able to remove them, like that Michelangelo statue. And it doesn't matter what level of success you're at, if you remove those other things, then what's left is the beautiful you. And it's not more effort, it's not more knowledge. Yes, do you have to have strategies? Do you have to have a certain amount of knowledge? Yes. But do we know like what to do with our health and diet? Do we know that we need to move more and eat less? I mean, is that like rocket science? Is that like earth-shattering information? No. So it's not that we don't know what to do, but we're not doing what we don't know. And in order to do that, what I'm suggesting is remove all these things that are stopping you. Remove all the things that are keeping you stuck. So remove your fears, remove your doubts, remove your hesitations, your limiting beliefs, your insecurities, and your feelings of inadequacy. Just imagine what your life would be like if you didn't feel inadequate or if you didn't feel insecure. What kinds of things would you do? I can tell you, for me, it's like when I first started doing YouTube videos, I felt a little insecure. I felt a little like, oh, what's this going to be like, right? And I still, if you ask me, I still have feelings sometimes like, oh, did that turn out well or not? But the more I can get to where I have that insecurities and I've set it aside and I don't have to worry about that, and I can just make this video, and if people like it, if they get something out of it, if it helps at least one person, great. And I don't have to worry about, oh, did I get 100 likes, or are people disliking this, that type of a thing. Then I'm so much more free. And we always talk about freedom, but if you're having all these other things, judgments and other things affecting you, how free are you really? A perfect example of this, where you remove things and that removal frees you up and allows you to do amazing things, is the Wright brothers. In the late 1800s and the early 1900s, Orville and Wilbur Wright, they wanted to build an airplane and have it fly in the sky. Were they the only ones that wanted to do that? Of course not. There was a guy named Sam Langley that had massive government backing and funding. He had the top scientists. He had all these things you would think would be perfect. But why didn't we hear about Sam Langley? Well, I'll tell you why. Because he had all these things that he couldn't remove, he couldn't let go of, and the Wright brothers could let go of these things, and that is why they were more successful. So let's look at this right here. The first thing they removed was the idea that flight was impossible. If you go back and look in history, a lot of the top scientists, a lot of the public opinion was that flying was impossible. Even the Wright brothers' dad said that if we were meant to fly, we would have wings like birds. Most people thought that that could not happen, even when the scientists were saying that lighter than air objects just could not fly. So they said the only way you could fly is if you made something lighter than air, and then you'd have the possibility of flight. But they said there's really nothing that you can make that is lighter than air, so therefore flight is impossible. Now the Wright brothers, they did not believe that. They said, no, I'm not going to buy that. Just like you had Roger Bannister in 1954, he didn't buy the belief that you had to have a mile be more than 4 minutes. He ran a 4-minute mile under 4 minutes. Everyone thought that was impossible. Again, doctors in the 1950s thought the body might explode, things might happen. So here the Wright brothers, they decided, I'm not going to believe this common belief, this limiting belief that is stopping me, and instead I'm going to embrace the possibility that flight is possible. So they released and removed that limiting belief. The second thing they removed was what failure meant. I talked about Sam Langley. Well, when he was doing this, he kept waiting to make everything perfect. We got to get everything just right, everything just perfect. And once we get everything perfect, then we will do a test flight. And that didn't turn out so well. His first public test flight ended in a failure, and then he quit. He was just like, no, I'm done with this. It's not going to work. I'm not going to humiliate myself with this silly thing that's not going to work. Whereas the Wright brothers, they removed what failure meant. They just saw failure as a necessary part of the process, a necessary step. They didn't see it as this is something bad or wrong. Failure is just what happens. It's just how you do it. You're not going to be able to figure it out right off in the bat, especially if it's something brand new you're trying to do. It's going to take experimentation. The third one is they removed the idea of perfect progress. They knew that you needed to tweak things. You needed to try things. You're going to have some failures. You have to test it. It's not going to be perfect. And from every new change, every new vision, every new thing, they learn something. They learn, oh, this is how it works. Oh, this can and make it better, faster, more efficient. But if you're waiting for it to be perfect, it's not going to happen. There is no such thing as perfect progress. You're going to go up and down and have good days and bad days. And they embrace that, and they remove this whole idea that it needs to be perfect progress. And what happened in 1903, they had the first controlled flight because they removed these other things. They removed the idea that what failure meant. They removed the idea that it was impossible. They removed the idea that we had to be perfect on our progress. When you remove all those limitations, it allows you to do the impossible. In this case, go from being grounded to being able to fly. And what did they all let go of? Let's recap this. They let go of fear. Do you think there's a lot of people that feared flying? Yeah, I mean, it's brand new. You'd have to be almost kind of like a daredevil to do something like this, something that no one had ever done before. So they removed their fear. They also removed what other people think. Their own father did not support what they were doing. He thought this was crazy. Other people thought they were crazy. They didn't read what was in the newspapers and take it to heart. They didn't do all that. They just said, hey, other people can have their opinions, and that's fine. I don't need to do that. So today, how that might apply to you is not watching the news very much, not listening to all the gossip or all what other people have to say, just removing yourself from that. The other thing they did is they removed limiting beliefs. Like I said, they removed the limiting belief that flight was impossible. They let go of the need for all this perfection, and when they removed all these obstacles, flight took place. I want to read 2 thoughts I came up with on this. The first one is, every fear faced is a freedom found. And related to this is, I turn my fears into freedoms. Think about your own life. What are some things that if you were to release them, let them go, remove them from your life would be better? One of them I want to suggest is distractions. How many people do you know, hopefully it's not yourself, but it probably has a high probability of being true, are addicted to distractions? We get ourselves busy all the time. We stay busy, we're always busy, and that distraction never lets us develop the person we could become because we're so busy helping everyone else, doing all these other things, that we never really put ourselves first. And if you think about it, when you're on an airline, what do they tell you? In case of emergency, put the mask on, yourself first, right? Put the mask on yourself first. They don't say help everyone else and then take care of yourself. The same thing with your fitness. You can't do my push-ups for me. You can't help me lower my cholesterol. I've got to take care of myself first. And that's not being selfish or anything, but when we get all these distractions of all these other things we're doing, are we developing our mind, our body, our spirit in all the ways we can? So that's the first one, is distractions, something that you might want to eliminate. The next one is complexity. Are we making things harder than they need to be, more steps than they need to be? Is there a way to simplify things and free up some time for us? Next, we have disempowering beliefs. Most of us have inherited all kinds of disempowering beliefs from our parents, our teachers, society at large, media, all this stuff. And those disempowering beliefs really do disempower us. That's why they're called disempowering beliefs. So which ones of those do you have that you could let go of? Like, I'm not good enough, I am unlucky, whatever it might be. Which one of those could you let go of and be a lot better off? The next one is the feeling of overwhelm. If you feel overwhelmed, what if overwhelm was an impossibility? What if you couldn't feel overwhelmed? What if that just couldn't exist? How would your life be different? If you can imagine that, then imagine that you could release that. You could figure out ways to not be overwhelmed. Next is perfection. A lot of us have this feeling that it has to be perfect, it has to be right. Well, what if you could just release that thought that I have to be perfect or I have to have perfection in my life? Next one is internal blocks. So many of us, myself included, I've worked through a lot of these. I'm sure I have more out there on internal blocks. Things where you are stopping you. These internal blocks. It's like, no one was stopping me from making a YouTube channel 20 years ago, but there was something in me that was stopping me, right? There was no one stopping me from investing in the stock market in the early 90s, but it was me stopping me, right? So you have all these internal blocks from a host of different people, a host of different areas, and what internal blocks, if you could just release them, let them go, you'd be so much better off. The next one is hesitation, and that is its cousin is procrastination. So are you hesitating? What if you could remove hesitation from your life? I know people who they only look at mail once. So when the mail comes in, they're going to take care of it or they're getting rid of it. They're not going to like put it in stacks and look at it another month and it's just going to take care of it right then and there. They're getting rid of hesitation. They're eliminating procrastination. The next one is doubt. What if you didn't doubt yourself? What if you had no doubt? What if you could just remove doubt? How much different would your life be? If I kept asking you to add things to your life, let's say you're holding stuff and I kept adding books, you know what I mean? Eventually, you're not going to be able to carry all the books. If I kept adding things for you to remember, I give you all these phone numbers, all these names, all this stuff, eventually you're not going to remember it all. It's going to fall off. So with us, we have all this stuff and it's not about adding, it's about subtracting. What in your life can you say no to? What can you take away from? Because there's a few things that matter in your life. And if you get down to the core of what really matters in your life and you eliminate the other things, you're going to feel a lot happier. You're not going to get stuck, because you get stuck when you're doing things that are less important, that are secondary, that are like distractions, procrastination, those types of things, instead of staying on your primary focus and your primary purpose. What things do I do where I am focusing on the things that don't matter, don't bring me joy, eat up a lot of my time? Instead, I could be doing something different. A lot of times people feel uncomfortable and kind of squeamy when I tell them about getting rid of things, getting rid of this, getting rid of that. And they're like, well, I don't know what the important things are. I don't know what I want. I don't know what my goal is. I don't know this. And I've thought about this quite a lot, and what I've came to the conclusion with is clarity is power. We all know that. We know when you're crystal clear on what you want, that gives you a lot of power. But so many of us, we don't seek clarity. We don't work on figuring out what we want, because when you have clarity and you say, like for me, I would like 1,000 subscribers to this YouTube channel. Well, as soon as I say I want 1,000 subscribers, what does that mean? It means I could fail, right? I could not reach that goal. And we don't like to take responsibility. We don't want personal accountability. So we don't get clear on things. We keep it ambiguous. We keep it unclear. And I'm challenging you right now is to figure out what really matters to me. Get clear on what are those few things that matter to me. Is it your faith? Is it your family? I mean, what is it that really matters to you the most? And then what are all the other things that, well, they're nice, but they're not really in my core here. Because if you can get clear on this, then what it's asking you to do is to be responsible and to take accountability. If you don't do that and you keep it ambiguous, then you're going to have excuses. Well, I'm not really sure what I want. I'm still thinking about it. And that feels safer. It feels safer to be ambiguous and unclear and vague. But the ultimate result of that, when they, and they've done studies on this, there was one person that put like the regrets of the dying or something like that, the regrets that you have in life. Anyway, when they look at it at the end, it's the person you could have become, what you could have done, how you could have helped out. So regret is the big thing that people feel at the end. And it doesn't seem like, oh, that's not a big deal. I have all this time. You don't know how much time you have. I don't know how much time I have. So you better get clear on what you want and then focus on that. And you're going to be so much better off than being kind of ambiguous. Well, I kind of want to do this. I kind of want to do that. Oh, maybe next year I'll start this. Well, next year you're going to always push that off into the future. I want to also talk a little bit more about subtracting here, because there was a 2021 study by the University of Virginia where they took people and they had them look at this Legos. These Legos were out, and it was like a kind of like a little structure of a building. And in there, they said, what can you do to make this stable? And basically, there was like a roof, and then there was another roof on top of it. And the roof on top only had one little column in one corner, and the other three corners didn't have anything. So it was very unstable. It would kind of fall down. And most people, what they did when they asked them, how would you solve this? And they gave them all the Legos and everything. They said, even they tried to encourage them not to do what the tendency was. They said, like, if you want to add a Lego, it's going to cost you. If you want to take away a Lego, it doesn't cost you anything. But most people added 3 Legos. They added 3 columns to make that top stable. So there was a roof, and then there was kind of like a patio thing, and then another roof on top of that. The very few people, what they did is they removed that one column and they put that other part down and made it like a double roof. And what they found is that the simplest things, remember when I talked about complexity? The simplest thing a lot of times is to remove something rather than add. So if you remove that one column, that roof would be stable. But most people, they wanted to add 3. And what they found is that most of us have a tendency when we're seeking help, when we're seeking something, we want to add more knowledge. We want to read more books. We want to study more things. We want to see more gurus. We want to do more practice. We want to add. And what they found is that most of the time the solution was subtracting. But we've been so conditioned, I don't want to say brainwashed, but we've been so conditioned, our pattern is to always add, that we figure, oh, I need to add. I know for me, sometimes I get too many clothes and I need to let go. So some of the ones are getting worn out and stuff. And you can't just keep adding. Sometimes you have to subtract. A few quotes that capture the essence of this video. One is from Bruce Lee. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. And the next one is by Lao Tzu, who was in the 6th century BC. To attain knowledge, add things every day. To attain wisdom, remove things every day. Success is less about accumulating things and more about eliminating things. Focus on your life. What can I eliminate? What things am I doing that I really don't need to do? They're really not helping me. They're not part of my core essence that I really want to live from. And when you subtract those things, you're not going to feel as weighted down. You're not going to be stuck. And you're going to be able to move beyond those things that have been holding you back, those fears, those limitations, those distractions. All those things cumulatively are just weighing you down and keeping you stuck. What you remove determines what remains. What remains is what truly matters. If you need any help on getting unstuck or removing the things that aren't part of your core, send me an email at optimizers.unlimited@gmail.com and we'll discuss and work through how I can help you. Thanks for joining me in this video. I'll see you in the next one. All the best to you.